ごさんありがとうございました。中国が大国になった今、なぜ北朝鮮やイランやシリアという、悪い国々とくっつかざるを得ないのか、非常に意味のある分析だったと思います。その悪い国の弾圧を受けてきたのがチベットでございます。亡命政府ができてすでに60年以上、その亡命政府に今本当に若い世代の首相が誕生いたしました。私たちは先月首相の中にチベットのチベット人がチベット人として生きる未来を見つめたいと思います。ではロブさん、先月首相お願いいたします。
I just want to start with two words that I've learned since coming here. Konnichiwa, arigatou gozaimasu. Great privilege and honor to be here today. Actually, when someone say that someone braved storm to meet me, it means a lot. Today, I think I was told by Yoshiko Sakurai that there's a storm coming, and I'm really appreciative of the audience to brave storm and come here to see what we have to say. So your commitment to come here, I would like to believe, reflects your interest and hopefully your support for Tibet. And also, several months ago, Ms. Yoshiko Sakurai and her delegation also braved rain, actually, to come to Dharamsala, because the direct flight from Delhi to Dharamsala got cancelled, and she had to fly to nearby city and drove several hours to come to Dharamsala, thereby demonstrating her, again, commitment and friendship towards Tibet and Tibetan people. And I would like to believe Ms. Sakurai and her friends who came to Dharamsala reflected the commitment of Japanese people and Japan as a nation. So would like to thank once again the Japanese Institute for National Fundamentals for hosting me here. The past 3 days have been very smooth, very extensive, and I'm honored to have met very prominent politicians, leaders, intellectuals, and people from the media. So such gesture means a lot to Tibetan people at this critical time, and I'm really, really grateful for the hospitality extended to me for this many days. And I'm also glad to see our friend, Uyghur friend and Mongolian friend, who will be also sharing their thoughts. Our issues are similar, and problems are also similar. I think solution also is also from one angle. Beijing has the solution, and Beijing is the problem. Hopefully, one day it will be realized, and we all will face common freedom under and conducive environment. So I'm glad to hear that two of our Uyghur and Mongolian friends will be participating in the second panel. And as just Professor Takebo just gave the comprehensive picture about democracy in general and today's topic, the groundswell of freedom in Asia and the wave of democratization, what is Japan expected to do? I think what Professor Takebo was conveying, and which I agree, is the universality of freedom. that freedom is universal. Every human being deserves their basic right and freedom. I think if you look at it globally, now it's proven actually that Buddhism and Shintoism have embraced democracy, and Buddhism and Shintoism are compatible with democracy, and Christianity have been compatible with democracy. Hinduism, Judaism are also compatible with democracy. And now with Jasmine Revolution or Arab Spring, Islam is also compatible with democracy. So the question is, will Confucianism embrace democracy or not, or China embrace democracy or not, is the big question. And as Professor Takebo was mentioning, will there be Jasmine Revolution in China? Perhaps maybe there's one indication. Chinese people do drink jasmine tea. So perhaps jasmine is already in Chinese people, and it just has to come out one day. And also the universality of freedom clearly proves that the argument about Asian values, Asian being exception, is also, I think, now proven wrong. Democracy has spread. As you know, there's been a lot of books by Robert Dahl, Huntington, and Farid Zakaria, where time and again the first, second, third wave of democracies have spread in the world. Now we can, with the Color Revolution and Arab Spring, and with Aung San Suu Kyi being freed, it's pretty clear that democracy is sweeping again, perhaps for the final round in this globe, and then people will get what they are entitled to, that is basic freedom and democracy. I'm often asked this question because now after His Holiness the Dalai Lama magnanimously devolved his political power, I'm given in charge of political affairs. I'm always asked this question: do you realistically think that your issue, the Tibet issue, will be solved? Because you are facing China. China is rising power, and I often say, China might be new to the world, but to Tibetans, we've been living side by side for hundreds and hundreds of years. We have dealt with them before, and we will deal with them now. One example is His Holiness the 13th Dalai Lama had to flee to India in 1907, 1908, when again Chinese army invaded Lhasa. But in short period of time, by 1913, His Holiness the 13th Dalai Lama returned to Tibet, and all the Chinese in Tibet left for China. So we have done that before, and we'll do it again, because 14th Dalai Lama had to flee. Now he's in India with us, and he will also return to Tibet like the 13th Dalai Lama did. So facing China, we have faced before. In that sense, Tibetans are genetically disposed in dealing with China and Chinese people. And that is why I left, after 16 years at Harvard Law School, I left Harvard, I left America, and returned to Dharamsala to work for Tibetan people with a firm belief that the younger generation of the Tibetan people should carry forward the freedom movement till freedom is restored for Tibetans and His Holiness the Dalai Lama returns to Tibet. So this is our belief and this is our conviction, and we do believe that it will happen one day soon. Now, I'll briefly talk about myself, then talk about exile and democracy, and then dwell a bit about the current situation in Tibet with the increasing cases of self-immolation. I grew up as an ordinary guy because my father fled Tibet in 1959. He fought against a Chinese Red Army. And my mother, 17 years old, also had to flee Tibet in 1959. And one of my uncles was sent back to fight against Chinese, and he never returned. He died. And then I grew up in a very small village in Darjeeling. Darjeeling is known for tea. But when I say small village, still a small village today, because I was there 2 years ago. And from that village to go to town, Darjeeling, you have to take there 4 or 5 taxis every day, between 7:30 to 8:30. If you miss any of those taxis, then you have to come back home. Then try again next day. It's that remote. So if you look up, it's all forest. If you look down, it's all field. And then I grew up, as I shared, between in the middle of cows and chicken. I used to spend my winter vacation going to the forest, fetching wood for home, and fetching grass for cows. And then I went to Tibetan refugee school, where I got my basic education. Then to Delhi University. If I may, in Tibetan refugee school, I used to eat, at least we were fed, that's all we used to get, rice and lentil soup every day for dinner. And dumpling and curry every day for lunch, actually. But the curry is not what you get in Indian restaurant or maybe in Japanese restaurant. Either you get potato for 3 months, radish for 3 months, cabbage for 3 months, because that's the available and cheapest vegetable in the market. So the dumpling, sometimes I jokingly say it's true. Dumpling is quite hard and dark. If you throw it, it bounces higher, actually. So that's how I grew up, and thanks to the Tibetan administration, which provided scholarship for me to go to Delhi University. And from there, I did my basic undergraduate degree and law degree. Then I went to Harvard Law School as a Fulbright, did my master's, and then did my doctorate in law. And then I got appointed as a fellow and then senior fellow till April of last year. So I left my job on April 1st, on April Fool's Day last year, and then returned to Dharamsala to take over the job as the Kalyan Tripa. And also, now I did not say much, actually. Tibetan democracy, I would like to claim, is genuine democracy. Otherwise, an ordinary guy like me with ordinary background would not have been elected if Tibetan democracy was and is not democratic. Actually, I became a candidate by default. There's a long story. If you want to read, you can find some details. Someone nominated me in a website, then other websites started nominating me, and then other organizations started picking up my name, and then I just became a virtual candidate, actually, just a website. Social network is very powerful. By then, I was thinking of withdrawing. It was too late, because everybody were nominating, not because I was the real candidate, but because I was the first candidate nominated in a website by a friend of mine who wanted to, jokingly, but and in a serious way also, he was seriously nominating me. And then, if I may, and I asked some of my friends, because when some organizations started nominating me, I had to think, should I stay or should I not stay? The problem is, in democratic system, you can choose to stay and not stay and give any reasons, family reasons, any reason you withdraw. But Tibetan situation is also a freedom movement. In freedom movement, you can't withdraw. If you withdraw, then you are saying your commitment to the cause is not strong. So from freedom movement, you can't withdraw. So I had to stay in. My freedom movement part of me was telling me to stay in. The democratic side of me was telling me to withdraw, because I was not a serious candidate to begin with. Then I decided to stay. Before I decided to stay, I asked my friends whether I should really run or not. And I asked my first friend. And he looked at me, he said, "You really want to run?" I said, "No, I can't withdraw, but I have to stay now." And he said, "Then what you need is a graceful exit strategy." Because look at other candidates. They're very, very serious candidates, and you have no chance of winning. So if you go in, you need a graceful exit strategy so that you can quietly go away. And the second friend asked me for 2 days, and after 2 days, he called me and said, I asked all my friends in Dharamsala and Washington, D.C., no one is going to vote for you, so you must get the clue. My friends are not voting for you, so who do you think will vote for you? And then the third friend took quite a pity on me and gave me an encouraging word. He said, you know, Lobsang, you have nothing to lose, so you should stay and run. So with that encouragement, I decided to stay in the race. But then one thing led to another. I went to the people. And then people took me seriously. And in the preliminary round, I got the largest number of votes. And then the other senior candidates, other candidates were former Kaluntripa, Speaker of the Parliament, Deputy Speaker, all. They also started going to the people because I got a large number of votes. Then it became a serious competitive election. But I would also like to believe that it was also somewhat Tibetan Buddhist kind of election. For example, me and the other two candidates, we had altogether 13 rounds of debates all over the continent, because the Tibetan election is not district, because we have a lot of member of parliament here. It's neither a district or a province or even a country. It's cross continents, because Tibetans are scattered in 40 countries. So actually at one time, I think in 6 days, I was in 4 different countries: Delhi, Zurich, Washington, D.C., and Toronto, and back, Canada, in 6 days, because there were all kinds of debates around. So it was a hard-fought cross-continents debates, and then, but it was also a kind of a Buddhist Tibetan kind of election. For example, we had one debate in Dharamsala. Next day, the debate was in Delhi. So to save costs, what we did was, me and the other candidate, we shared taxi. We took the taxi together and drove 12 hours to Dharamsala, to Delhi, whole night. So when we reached Delhi, we went to a hotel and there were only 2 rooms available. So the organizers took 1 room, and me and the other candidate shared the other room. And next day we had good breakfast together, then another round of good debate, then we had good lunch together, then we gave each other camping tips. Because by then I had been to several places, and I told him avoid how to take shortcut to certain areas, because in India when you campaign, when you go from one refugee camp to another refugee camp, you have to take 22 hours by taxi. And it's many, many hours drive. So we were giving each other camping tips. So that's how we ran. So we were friends before the election, during the election, even now we are still friends. So that's why that's the Tibetan freedom movement side of it. So Tibetans in 40 countries, from Alaska to Australia, voted. And then this democracy, as Ms. Yoshiko Sakurai said, has been growing or consolidating for the last 50+ years. In some places in Ladakh, the border of Tibet, in March when they finally voted, the temperature was -40 degrees in mountain tops. But still, the local Tibetan election officials, they took ballot boxes on the backs of yaks and donkeys and climbed mountains for 3 days. And then the nomads came down from mountain tops, from their tents to the voting place and voted. And they collect the ballot papers and then went down for 3 days. And then it was counted. And some places, let's say in Bandra, in another Tibetan refugee camp, it's so hot, it's 40+ degrees Celsius, really hot. I've been there. People from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., they just stay indoor with a bucket full of water and white cloth. Each time they cover themselves with this wet cloth, and each time it gets dried, they put it in the water, again dry. So they just don't come out, but still they participated. So this is committed democracy, and Tibetans have really participated in it for long time. And but then all along I thought that I was going to Dharamsala to work for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, because he was, till March of last year, both the spiritual and political leader. So to work under him makes it a little easier. As it is, the political leadership is very difficult. My Uyghur friend and Mongol friend will testify that our job is very difficult. But still, if you have His Holiness the Dalai Lama to work for, it's a little easier. But then on 10th March last year, I was in Dharamsala, where Ms. Sakura visited, and you all visited, and you all are invited to come to Dharamsala to visit next time. So, as I was sitting at the back end of the podium, His Holiness Dalai Lama announced that he is going to devolve all his political power to the next democratically elected leader. Then I was sitting at the back end of the podium, and I was like, oh, this is serious now, because I became a candidate by default to begin with. Now, to accept full responsibility as the political leader, you are in a very difficult position. And then the time was March 10th, he made the announcement. March 20th was the final round of the vote. You have only 10 days to decide. Actually, there is no time to decide, because by then if you withdraw, again, you have to remember, Tibetan freedom movement, you simply cannot withdraw. Then you are betraying the cause. You are not committing yourself. So you cannot give family reasons to withdraw also. So you had to stay. And then I thought to myself, the whole experience, and told myself, and I still believe, that I was elected, and I became the political leader by my lay, by my karma. In Buddhist concept, it's my karma. There is no explanation. Because if you look at it from historical angle, it's too complex to analyze. Political angle, because His Holiness the Dalai Lama, global statesman, worldwide known as an advocate of peace, compassion, interfaith dialogue, Nobel Peace Laureate, and who am I? Just an ordinary guy from a very small village who went to refugee school. And to take the responsibility is, one could say, beyond imagination. But then one has to, because it was His Holiness' vision all along to set up democratic system. His expectation is that Tibetan people provide leadership to the Tibetan movement. If not me, someone has to, and someone has to be a Tibetan. So I thought to myself, I am a Tibetan, this is my responsibility, and I should take it. So with that commitment, I took the responsibility, and here I am today. And then the Tibetan administration we have in Dharamsala functions like any other government. We have 7 major departments. For example, International Relations Department has 11 offices around the world, 1 in Tokyo, and we have Lakpat Sogola as our representative here. And then we have 1 in Geneva, New York, Brussels, so South Africa, Taiwan, so all over. And then the Education Department runs about 70 plus primary, middle, and high schools. The Department of Religion and Culture oversees about 250 monasteries and nunneries. So I studied in one of the refugee schools where Tibetan language, culture is emphasized. So it runs like any other government. And we also have a parliament. It meets twice a year, winter session and spring session. And winter session is budget session, which normally takes place in March. We just had 10 days of parliamentary session. And like any other parliament, like Japanese Diet, we also get grilled and questioned. The executive branch is always on the defensive mode in those 10 days. And we also have judiciary, which try civil cases. Because we are in India, we cannot try criminal cases, but the judiciary tries civil cases. So 3 branches of the government, various departments, it runs like any other government. And it provides a lot of welfare oriented aid to Tibetan people, free education to Tibetans who flee from Tibet, and also scholarship to go to colleges. And that's how I got my college degrees. And so sometimes people ask me, how is your job? And I say, my job description is difficult. And Beijing always try to make it more difficult on a daily basis. If I want to visit any country, the embassy, Chinese embassy, is very busy. Before I even visit, they have already made rounds of all the potential people I might meet or I might come across. They already warn them not to meet. And after I've met all the people, they will, minister level come and quote unquote scold them why they met the splitties, you know. Actually, a funny incident, I met an ambassador and a director of Asia department of a particular country in Dharamsala. And she asked me, so you're coming to our country? And I said, no, I don't have a plan to come to your country this year. Oh, the Chinese ambassador already came and told me, warned me not to meet you. And I said, but are you going to meet me if I come? She said, sure, I'll come meet you, you know. So despite the pressure, I've been to the US, 9 countries in Europe, and Japan is the first country in Asia that I'm visiting. And in all the places, thankfully, people have met me and hosted me, formally, informally, sometimes in the office, sometimes in the restaurant. But we Tibetans say, we meet anyone who wants to meet, and we will not complain against those who don't want to meet. Because given a choice, I would like to believe everybody would like to meet and at least hear what Tibetans have to say, because freedom is universal. Everybody accepts that. And Tibetans are aspiring for what everybody should have, basic freedom. So that I believe. But Beijing tries to make it more difficult. Let me give you one example. A couple of examples, maybe. I received an email from a journalist from Beijing. She wanted to interview me, actually Time magazine. And I said, sure, I'm happy to receive you in Dharamsala. 3 days before her arrival, she sent me an email with a list of questions she wants to ask. And said, oh, journalist, so generous. Normally journalists don't send questions beforehand. But then it was a Gmail account, so I clicked on view. Chinese characters appeared, meaning, oh, it was virus, not questions. And I wrote her, this is the email that I received from her. Oh, she tracked it down, but then it was routed through San Francisco somewhere. You know, they make it difficult to track it. It was very clear. And before I went to the US, I sent a memo as to who I want to meet to a couple of people who were arranging my meetings. The memo got leaked again, so that trying to sabotage and intimidate, you know, what I was trying to do. And then the staff members were very nervous when they saw that our memo was leaked to the whole world. And they were saying, what to do now? And I said, nothing doing. We'll follow exactly the same schedule, meet the same number of people, and more. Because, of course, we believe in nonviolence. We believe in dialogue. But that does not mean that we will be intimidated by anyone. We will let anyone sabotage us. That we will not accept. We will play fair, but we will. So on that basis, I went to the US, and fortunately, many senators and congressmen met, and officials also met, intellectuals think tank. So thankfully it went well. And similarly to European countries as well, where I went, received well, met many people. The same thing happened. The minister level comes and again tells them why they met me, and they criticize His Holiness Dalai Lama and myself for meeting. Why the Chinese government is doing this, actually? As it is, my job is so difficult. Why they are trying to make it more difficult? I think because the Chinese government, at least the hardliners in China, are not willing to face the truth. Truth is that there is repression in Tibet. And Tibetan people are saying the occupation is unacceptable, repression is unbearable. That is why there has been protest after protest after protest in Tibet. Now recently, self-immolation cases. 33 self-immolation. 33 Tibetans have set themselves on fire, of which 22 have died. Why? We all are human beings. We know life is precious. Given a choice, we all want to live. No one wants to die. No one wants to die in such tragic way. We all want to spend our days together with our family members, our friends, our parents, look after our parents if lucky. But why would anyone cut short one's life? When the situation becomes unbearable, some people say, perhaps I should give up my life so to send a message to the world that we are suffering and we deserve attention, we deserve support. This is the message, not just one Tibetan. 33 Tibetans from inside Tibet have sent. And as Professor Takebo mentioned, one undergraduate unemployed vegetable vendor in Tunisia self-immolated, led to Jasmine Revolution. Then the international community sends helicopters, tanks, guns, money. And 33 Tibetans have self-immolated. Still, international community have expressed concerns, issued statements which we appreciate. But what about effective support? Tibetan blood is as red, as warm as a Tunisian blood. And how many more Tibetans have to self-immolate before the international community pay attention? Before Beijing says, oh, we see what we ought to change. Now Beijing is, instead of accepting the blame, they're resorting to blame game. They're turning it around and blaming His Holiness Dalai Lama, blaming me for instigating the problem. But the blame and the solution lies with Beijing. If Beijing ends repression in Tibet, self-immolation will end. If Beijing provides solution to the Tibet problem, self-immolation will end. And now they turn it around and start blaming us. And interestingly, they also say, oh, this is against Buddhist norm. Now the Communist Party of China has started teaching out Buddhism. Communism says religion is poison. Communist Party of China calls His Holiness Dalai Lama a devil. Now adding insult to injury, they're saying, oh, according to Buddhism, this is not right. But is the invading army of China, which destroyed 98% of monasteries and nunneries before the Cultural Revolution in 1965. They chased away all the monks and nuns from monasteries. Even today, there are a lot of restrictions on monasteries. A lot of monks are expelled. They violate Buddhism, then give Buddhist reason and blame us. This violation of Buddhist principles and Buddhist institutions are the reasons why there are self-immolations. Of course, at human level, when you hear about self-immolation, it is really sad and tragic. And one instinctively feels that one should not die this way. One should not give up one's life this way. So as the political leader, based on His Holiness Dalai Lama's view, we have called on Tibetans to refrain from any drastic actions. We have told them not to self-immolate. As a human being, that's a natural feeling, and we have expressed so, and we have issued statements. But Tibetans are still continuing to do so. Then as a Buddhist, or as a Shintoist, what you do is normally when someone dies, you pray for that person. So similarly, we have organized prayers for all those who have sacrificed. Then as a Tibetan, you feel that they died for Tibet and Tibetan people. So we must show solidarity for them because they died for us. They died for our freedom. So it's natural that we show solidarity. So this is where we stand. That as a human being, we want them not to resort to self-immolation. As a Buddhist, we pray for them. And as a Tibetan, show solidarity because their voices should not go unheard. Their life loss should not go in vain. So that's why we say what they died for are two main factors. The universal slogan, almost all of them who died said, we want His Holiness Dalai Lama to return to Tibet. This is universal. Everybody said that. Now His Holiness has come to Japan before, and is coming again in November. You all get to meet His Holiness if you want to, but Tibetan inside Tibet are saying 60 years we haven't met His Holiness and we want to see Him. This is their one demand. So and then they are giving up their lives. And the motivation is for Tibet and Tibetan people. Again, all the 33 self-immolators, their intention is not to harm anyone. That's why all the 33 people who have self-immolated inside Tibet have not harmed anyone. But of course, the action is tragic and sad. So I'm here with a very difficult job, but also a simple job. That is to speak for Tibetans who are suffering inside Tibet. 33 Tibetans have died, and what they want is return of His Holiness Dalai Lama to Tibet and freedom for Tibetans. So this conference is about freedom in Asia and democratization, and our demand, our aspiration is same as the aspiration of Tibetans, aspiration of human being from Asia to Africa, from color revolution to jasmine revolution. Demands are the same. We are part of the universal movement for freedom. And obviously, I would like to conclude by saying Japan has a major role to play, because Japan has demonstrated that Shintoism, Buddhism, and democracy are compatible. Democracy in Japan is mature. Democracy in Japan is consolidated. Japan is an example for many countries in the world, particularly in Asia. So when anyone says that there is Asian values and we Asian cannot have democracy, Japan can say, sorry, you're wrong. Asian can have democracy. We Japanese people have democracy. I think the fact that you all are here, I would like to believe you all subscribe to this idea and support that there be freedom for everyone in Asia, including Tibetans in Tibet. With your support, with your solidarity, We will get there very soon. Thank you very much.
どうもありがとうございました。この後はいくつか質問をしながら